"Why didn't you take the money?" the woman in the charcoal coat asked. Ethan Cole stood beneath the white lobby lights with a black leather wallet half closed between his rough hands, cash still visible inside, while Martin Voss held Ethan's bent temporary badge against the security desk like evidence. 2 guards blocked the glass doors. Ethan touched the folded note in his work jacket pocket and said, "Because my daughter believes me when I tell her right is right." 3 hours earlier, the basement maintenance corridor had smelled of machine oil, warm dust, and burnt coffee. Ethan knelt beside an electrical panel, tightening the loose terminal that had made the break room lights flicker all week. His old watch, his late wife's last birthday gift, showed 4:46 p.m. His cracked phone buzzed on the concrete beside his toolbox. Final notice, the landlord's message read, "Payment must be received by noon tomorrow to avoid termination proceedings." Ethan read it twice, then turned the screen face down. A second notification showed the refill cost for Lily's inhaler. He breathed through his nose, slow and controlled, and returned to the terminal until the copper sat clean beneath the screw. At 6, Martin passed the open doorway in a Navy management coat, smiling as if checking on an old friend. "Still here, Ethan? I admire the dedication. Panel wasn't safe. Neither is overtime that hasn't been approved." Martin's voice stayed warm, but his eyes dropped to Ethan's phone. "Hard month." Ethan slid the device into his pocket. "Just a month." Martin rested one hand on the doorframe. "People make poor choices when pressure builds. Remember that." Then he walked away, the soft squeak of his dress shoes disappearing toward the service elevator. At 7:39, Ethan signed out of the 18th floor utility room and pushed the gray maintenance cart toward the freight elevator. "The left will click 3 times with every turn." Tick, 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 then fell silent on the straightaway. On the ground floor, the fluorescent lights hummed above polished stone. Most employees had already gone. Near the service elevator, the cart jerked as one will caught on something dark. Ethan stopped. Black leather wallet lay wedged beneath the lower frame, one corner marked by a fresh crescent-shaped scratch. Fine graphite dust clung to its stitching. He lifted it by the edges. The wallet opened under its own weight, exposing stacked bills, bank cards, and the corner of an old photograph. His phone buzzed again. The landlord. Ethan stared at the money long enough to calculate what it could do. Rent, Lily's medicine, groceries without counting every item twice. From his breast pocket, the folded paper Lily had slipped into his lunch bag brushed his knuckles. She had written it in purple marker that morning. "Doing right still counts when nobody sees." Ethan closed his eyes once. Then he folded the wallet shut. Footsteps sounded behind him, not hurried, but approaching. He turned toward the security desk with the wallet held openly in both hands. "Someone dropped this by the service elevator," he said. Martin emerged from the corridor almost immediately, his professional smile already in place. "Put it down, Ethan." One guard moved between Ethan and the doors. Another reached for his radio. A woman in a charcoal coat had stopped near the elevator, watching without speaking. Ethan placed the wallet on the marble counter. "Seal it before anyone opens it, and note where I found it." Martin removed Ethan's temporary badge with a sharp tug that bent one corner. "We'll follow procedure. Nearly $4,000 can disappear in seconds." The woman's gaze shifted from Martin to the unopened wallet. For the first time, her expression changed. "Nearly 4,000? She asked quietly. Martin's fingers paused on the incident form. No one in the lobby had counted the money. No one answered Claire's question. The only sound in the lobby was the low hum of the recessed lights and the faint rattle of the ventilation grill above the security desk. Martin looked down at the incident form, then back up with the patient expression of a man explaining policy to someone who did not understand it. "It was an estimate. Before the wallet was opened?" Claire asked. "Based on the report." Ethan kept his hands flat on the cold marble, the bent corner of his temporary badge resting beside the black wallet. Martin turned slightly toward the guards, making the conversation feel settled before it was. "Disable his access card. We'll document attempted theft and place him on administrative suspension pending review. The younger guard hesitated, then tapped Ethan's card against a small black reader. A red light blinked once. Somewhere behind Ethan, an elevator opened and a cluster of office employees stepped out beneath the Gold Company logo. Their conversation thinned when they saw the wallet, the guards, and Ethan's work jacket stained at one cuff with graphite. A woman carrying a laptop bag looked at his worn boots, then whispered something to the man beside her. He glanced at Ethan's cracked phone on the counter and lowered his voice, but not enough. That's the guy from Knights, the one who applied for hardship assistance. Ethan heard every word. He did not turn around. Martin slid the incident form across the desk. The box beside termination pending criminal review had already been checked in blue ink. This is temporary, Martin said. No one is judging you. Ethan looked at the checked box. Then leave the judgment blank. Martin's smile tightened without disappearing. We have to prepare for every possible outcome. He reached for the wallet. Ethan moved only one hand, placing 2 fingers beside it without touching the leather. Seal it first. Security can handle that. Then let them. The guard nearest the desk opened a clear evidence pouch. The plastic crackled sharply in the quiet lobby, and Claire watched Ethan step back on his own before the wallet was lifted. He did not ask her to believe him. He did not mention Lily's inhaler or the rent notice still glowing behind the cracks in his phone screen. Instead, he pointed to the form. Write that I brought it to the desk. Write where I found it. And write that the cash was counted after I arrived. Martin exhaled softly, as if Ethan's caution were an inconvenience. You work maintenance, Ethan. You are not directing an investigation. I'm asking you not to erase the beginning of it. A few employees near the elevators shifted their weight. One man stared at the floor. Another folded his arms, studying Ethan as though calmness itself might be rehearsed. Martin turned to the small crowd with the measured concern of a supervisor protecting everyone from discomfort. Please keep moving. This employee is under stress, and we want to preserve his dignity. The words sounded kind. The effect was not. People began walking again, but slower, carrying the accusation with them toward the doors. Claire's eyes moved to the ceiling camera above the desk. A green status light glowed on its base. You said the cameras were down, she said. They have been unreliable since the start of the shift, Martin replied. At that moment, the security monitor flashed a yellow storage warning, stamped 7:45 p.m. Martin reached across the desk and dismissed it before Claire could lean closer. Ethan saw the movement reflected in the polished stone. He also saw Martin's thumb leave a pale streak through the graphite dust on the bent edge of his badge. We don't need to complicate this, Martin said. The money is here. The employee is contained. Procedure will protect everyone. Claire looked at Ethan, but her face held caution, not trust. Did you open the wallet? It opened when I lifted it. Did you touch the cash? No, Martin spoke before she could continue. He may have changed his mind when he heard security approaching. Desperation changes people. Ethan looked at the red light still glowing on the card reader, then at his name printed across the badge Martin had folded in half. It reveals them, he said. Claire's gaze dropped to the incident form. The typed creation time in the bottom corner read 7:38 p.m., 4 minutes before the camera timestamp Ethan had given for finding the wallet. Claire looked again at the creation time on the incident form. 7:38, she said. Martin did not look down. The system generates drafts automatically. Before an incident exists, when risk indicators are present. Ethan watched the cursor blink beside the checked termination box. He could have pressed the point. Instead, a metal bucket struck the floor behind him with a sharp hollow crack. Rosa Alvarez had been trying to guide her cleaning cart around the employees still lingering near the elevators. One will caught in the wet caution mat, and the bucket tipped, sending gray water across the marble. Her shoe slid toward the edge of the shallow step. Ethan moved before either guard could stop him. He caught Rosa beneath the elbow and braced his other hand against the stone column. Water soaked the knee of his work pants. The younger guard reached for his shoulder, then stopped when he saw Rosa gripping Ethan's sleeve. "I'm all right," she whispered. "You sure?" Ethan asked. "My ankle is fine." "Then don't move yet." He lowered the yellow caution sign into the middle of the spill and used his boot to block the step until Rosa found her balance. No one thanked him. Martin only glanced at the wet floor and said, "Ethan, you were instructed to remain by the desk." She was falling. Security was present. Ethan looked at the guards standing 6 feet away. She was falling now. Martin's expression remained pleasant, but his voice cooled. "Rosa, this will need to be documented. Leaving equipment in a traffic path creates liability." Rosa's fingers tightened around the handle of her cart. Her cleaning contract was renewed month to month, and everyone on the night shift knew it. Ethan bent, righted the bucket and said, "The cart was clear. I stepped back into her path when you took my badge. Put that in the report." Rosa turned toward him. "Mr. Cole, you didn't—" "The floor needs drying." He handed her the cleanest towel from the side rack and took the stained one for himself. Martin gave a small sigh, as if Ethan had proven exactly what he believed about him. "Covering for coworkers will not help your case." Ethan knelt and wiped the water before it reached the electrical outlet beneath the security desk. Something pale slid from the open evidence tray and landed face down in the spill. It was the old photograph from the wallet. Ethan caught it by one corner before the water reached the ink. He placed 2 dry tissues beneath it, lifted it without touching the image, and set it on a plastic access card to keep it above the wet marble. "This should be bagged separately," he said. Claire stepped closer. For the first time, she saw the front of the photograph. A younger version of herself beside a brick factory entrance, standing next to a man whose hand rested lightly on her shoulder. Ethan turned his eyes away before the details settled. "You didn't look at it," Claire said. "It isn't mine to look at." As he stood, the folded note in his pocket slipped onto the counter. Purple marker showed through the crease. Claire picked it up before the water could reach it, but Ethan held out his hand. "Please." She gave it back without opening it fully. Only one line had been visible. "Doing right still counts when nobody sees." "Your daughter?" she asked. Ethan folded the paper along the worn crease. "Lily." His cracked phone vibrated again. The screen showed a school number, then stopped before he could answer. For half a second, his face changed. Not fear for himself, but the ache of knowing his 9-year-old was waiting for him to call back. He slid the phone away and returned to drying the floor. Rosa watched Martin move toward the evidence pouch. "Mr. Voss," she said carefully, "you pushed that gray maintenance cart out of storage before Mr. Cole came downstairs." Martin's hand paused above the wallet. "You're confused, Rosa." "Maybe." She lowered her eyes. "I didn't see your face the whole time." Martin smiled again, relieved. "Then we should avoid speculation." Rosa looked at Ethan's soaked knee, then at the crescent scratch on the wallet. "But I heard the wheel," she said. 3 clicks every time it turned. Claire's gaze shifted to the service corridor, where the gray cart stood silent beneath the fluorescent lights. Ethan looked at it too. The left wheel was the one he had been meaning to repair. Rosa's words left a narrow silence between the security desk and the service corridor. Martin broke it first. "She heard a defective wheel," he said. "That does not establish who pushed the cart." Rosa lowered her eyes toward the wet towel in her hands. The fluorescent light sharpened every crease in her face. "I said what I heard. And we appreciate that," Martin replied, his tone gentle enough to sound protective. "But your shift has been long and memory under stress can be unreliable." Ethan watched Rosa's shoulders fold inward. He could have argued for her. Instead, he picked up the yellow caution sign and moved it closer to the last ribbon of water, giving her a reason to step away from Martin's gaze. Claire noticed the movement, but her eyes returned to Ethan. "Did you use that cart tonight?" she asked. "Yes." "Could the wallet have been scratched while you were handling it?" "It could have been scratched by anything with the same height and shape." Martin nodded as though Ethan had helped him. "Exactly." He works around metal, graphite, tools. Every mark on that wallet can be explained by his environment. Claire did not answer. She was still holding the old photograph by its dry edge. Beneath it, the thin strip of paper stuck to the back had darkened where the water nearly reached it, but no one examined it yet. Ethan looked past the desk toward the gray maintenance cart. The left wheel sat slightly angled, its rubber edge marked by a fresh wet line from the lobby floor. "Can I ask one question?" he said. Martin's jaw tightened. "You have asked several." Claire turned toward him. "Ask it." Ethan pointed without stepping closer. "If the cart stayed in storage until I signed it out, why is there graphite on the wallet at the exact height of the lower rail?" Martin gave a restrained smile. "Because you picked up the wallet beside the cart. The rail would have to move against the leather. Or the wallet shifted when you stopped. The wheel was locked when I found it." The younger guard looked toward the cart. Claire's gaze followed. Martin moved smoothly between them and the service corridor. "We are spending a great deal of time reconstructing ordinary contact. The simplest explanation remains that Ethan found the wallet, opened it, and panicked when security approached." Ethan did not challenge the word opened. He crouched beside the counter instead and angled the sealed evidence pouch toward the overhead light. The crescent scratch on the wallet's corner caught white against the black leather. Fine gray powder sat inside the cut, not merely across the surface. "That mark happened before I lifted it," Ethan said. "How can you know that?" Claire asked. "Because fresh graphite is packed into the groove. If I scratched it after picking it up, the dust would be on top, not pressed inside." Martin's eyes flicked toward the pouch. "A maintenance worker is not a forensic examiner." "No," Ethan said. "That is why security should test it." Claire held his gaze for a second longer than before, but caution remained in her face. His explanation was plausible, not proven. His hands knew machines and surfaces. That same knowledge could help him understand evidence or manufacture it. "Have the guard collect a comparison sample," she said at last. Martin stepped closer. "Claire, that is unnecessary." The name landed softly but changed the air. Ethan looked at the woman in the charcoal coat. Claire gave Martin a brief, warning glance. "You know me?" she asked Ethan. "No, ma'am." "Then continue not assuming anything." The guard fetched a clean white cloth and walked toward the cart. Ethan stayed beside the desk, both hands visible. The cloth passed once across the curved lower rail. A dark graphite streak appeared immediately. Rosa inhaled through her teeth. The guard measured the rail against the scratch using a security ruler. Both sat 31 inches from the floor. Martin folded his arms. "That still proves only that the wallet touched company equipment." "Then check who signed the card out," Ethan said. The terminal chimed as the guard opened the service log. A line appeared beneath the cart number. "Released at 7:34 p.m. Management Authorization M. Voss." Martin leaned toward the screen. "I approved it for Ethan." "At 7:34? Claire asked. "A routine late entry." Ethan was still on the 18th floor. Martin's answer came too quickly. He requested it over the radio. Ethan looked at the radio clipped to his belt. Its battery indicator had been dead since 6:50. A fault he had already written on the maintenance sheet. The guard opened the door access log next. At 7:34, Martin's management badge had entered the storage room. No employee badge followed. Claire said nothing, but her thumb stopped moving along the edge of the photograph. Martin reached across the desk and minimized the log. "This can be reconciled tomorrow." As the screen disappeared, Ethan saw one more entry beneath it. The service hall camera had gone offline at 7:39 and returned at 7:46, exactly 7 minutes. He looked from the missing footage to the 3-click wheel, then to the graphite packed inside the wallet's crescent scratch. Someone had not merely moved the cart. Someone had known precisely when the camera would stop watching. The 7-minute gap stayed frozen on the security screen. Martin rested one hand on the counter and gave the younger guard a calm, reassuring nod. The camera dropped. "That happens. We can wait for IT in the morning." "And suspend him tonight?" Claire asked. Temporarily, to protect everyone. Ethan looked past them toward the recording cabinet built into the wall behind the desk. A faint mechanical buzz rose beneath the air conditioning, then dipped, then returned with a soft tremor every few seconds. He knew that sound, not because he was trying to prove anything, but because machines rarely failed in silence. The recorder is still running, he said. Martin turned toward him. You cannot know that from across the room. The cooling fan is out of balance. This is a security system, not a furnace. Fans fail the same way. A few employees who had not yet left glanced back from the glass doors. One man had been dragging a metal chair closer to here. The scraping stopped halfway across the marble. The low hum of the building became suddenly clear. Claire placed the old photograph flat on the desk, careful not to disturb the damp strip of paper on its back. What are you suggesting? Only that the primary display may not be the only copy. Martin gave a short, patient laugh. Ethan, this is exactly why procedures exist. People under pressure start seeing patterns that are not there. Ethan did not argue. He pointed to a small amber light behind a bundle of black cables. If that model uses mirrored storage, the backup drive may still be intact. The guard leaned closer. It does have dual storage. Martin's smile remained, but one finger began tapping against the incident form. Then IT can examine it tomorrow. No one should touch it. Tonight, Ethan said. Including me. That made Claire look at him differently. Not with trust yet, but with attention. Can it be checked remotely? She asked. The guard nodded. Vendor support has an emergency line. Martin stepped closer to the cabinet. I can authorize the call. Claire's voice stayed level. You won't. The room seemed to shrink around those two words. She took out her phone, typed a message, and handed the guard a number. Call this line. Put it on speaker. No local changes. Export anything recovered as read only. Martin's expression did not break, but the tapping stopped. Ethan moved away from the cabinet and returned to Rosa, who was still holding the damp towel. He lowered the caution sign so it stood firmly over the last wet patch. You should sit down, he said quietly. I'm fine. You're shaking. Rosa looked toward Martin. I don't want trouble. Then don't give them more than you know. Ethan pulled a dry chair from the wall and placed it beside her without drawing attention. 3 clicks. That's enough. She sat, relief softening her face. The speakerphone crackled. A technician asked the guard to read the recorder model and serial number. Ethan kept his hands in his jacket pockets while the guard followed each instruction. The cabinet fan clicked unevenly, a soft plastic rattle beneath every voice. Primary volume is unreadable, the technician said. Martin exhaled through his nose. Then the technician continued. Secondary mirror is online. The chair near the doors stopped moving entirely. Someone's whisper died in the middle of a sentence. On the monitor, the black service hallway reappeared in grainy gray. The timestamp read 7 hours 42 minutes and 13 seconds. Ethan emerged from the freight elevator pushing the cart. He stopped when the wheel caught, bent down, lifted the wallet by its edges, and walked directly toward the lobby. He never opened it. He never touched the cash. He never looked over his shoulder. The video ran only 11 seconds, but when it ended, the lobby was silent enough to hear the vent above the desk click as it changed cycles. Claire lowered her phone. Martin spoke first. That shows what happened after he found it. It does not show who placed it there. His tone was still professional, but his hand had closed around the edge of the form hard enough to wrinkle the paper. The technician rewound the footage and slowed the final seconds before Ethan arrived. In the reflection on the steel elevator doors, a dark figure crossed the hall wearing a navy coat and a management badge. The face remained outside the frame. Could be anyone, Martin said. Several managers wear navy. Then let the image remain evidence, Ethan replied. Not an accusation. Claire nodded once. Preserve the original. She told the guard to lock the cabinet, retain the wallet, the photograph, the service log, and the incident form, then sent another message without explanation. On the screen, the technician opened the system event history. The camera had not failed at 7:39. It had been placed into maintenance mode by a management account, authenticated with a two-step code sent to a personal phone. The technician repeated the result over the speakerphone. Maintenance mode was activated at 7:39 p.m. The authentication code was sent to the personal number ending in 4168. Martin's hand moved toward the inside pocket of his navy coat, then stopped. The younger guard looked at the phone-shaped outline beneath the fabric. That could be any management device, Martin said. Several supervisors used linked accounts. Then we verify the destination, Claire replied. Her voice was quiet, but the guard straightened as if an executive order had been issued. Martin glanced at her more carefully. This is an internal security matter. We should continue in private. Claire looked at the green light above the camera, then at Ethan's bent badge lying beside the sealed wallet. Not yet. She asked the technician to preserve the event log and send the authentication record to the company's legal archive. The man on the phone requested an authorization code. Claire recited 6 digits without checking a document. The guard's eyes lifted from the screen. Martin's mouth opened, but no words came. Ethan understood only that she possessed access far beyond that of an ordinary visitor. He did not ask who she was. His cracked phone vibrated again against his jacket. This time the screen showed an email notification beneath Lily's school number, Employee Emergency Fund, application status. Martin noticed it. Your personal finances are not relevant to this inquiry. Ethan read the subject line once. You made them relevant when you called me desperate. Claire held out her hand. May I see it? Ethan hesitated, not from embarrassment but from caution. Then he opened the message himself and placed the phone flat on the marble. The confirmation email was dated 11 days earlier. It stated that his application for temporary rental and prescription assistance had been received with all required documents. Martin pulled a thin breath through his nose. Receiving an application does not mean it was completed. There were 3, Ethan said. He found the second email, then the third. Each carried a submission number. Each thanked him for providing the final document. Claire asked the guard to open Ethan's employee assistance record. The printer behind the desk began spitting out pages, its rollers squeaking with every sheet. On the screen, all 3 applications were marked incomplete. The status changes had been entered after 11 p.m., long after the Human Resources office closed. Who edited them? Claire asked. Martin's voice softened into concern. Temporary workers often misunderstand the process. Missing signatures, unreadable attachments, expired forms. I have tried to help Ethan before. Ethan looked at the screen. I never spoke to you about the applications. Martin wiped one thumb across his upper lip. You may not remember. Claire requested the audit trail. The guard opened a hidden panel and read the account name aloud. Voss. The printer stopped. In the sudden silence, the fluorescent hum seemed louder than before. Martin leaned closer to Claire. Those entries were administrative cleanups. We can discuss context upstairs. How many files did you clean up? She asked. The search returned 23 temporary employees whose applications had been changed from received to incomplete during Martin's night shifts. Several had later been referred to an outside community services vendor. The vendor name appeared in the payment column again and again. Voss Community Services. Martin gave a small, humorless laugh. A common surname. A profitable coincidence, Claire said. Ethan saw Rosa watching from the chair, one hand gripping the damp towel. 2 names on the list belonged to cleaners from her crew. Another belonged to a loading dock worker who had missed a week after his son's surgery. Ethan could have pointed at Martin and demanded that security hold him. He could have described the rent notice, Lily's inhaler, and every night he had believed the company fund simply did not have room for people like him. Instead, he said, Do not restore only my file. Claire turned toward him. What would you have us do? Freeze the records. Preserve the originals. Contact every person on that list before anyone changes another line. Martin's polite mask tightened at the edges. You are making serious accusations from incomplete data. I'm asking you not to erase the beginning of this one either. Claire studied Ethan, not with pity now, but with the measured attention of someone comparing his choices to the evidence. She asked the guard to check the two-step authentication history for the assistance portal. The same personal number ending in 4168 appeared beside 17 late-night edits. Martin finally removed his phone from his pocket and turned it face down on the counter. Claire's own phone rang. She answered with only her last name. The voice on the other end immediately said, "Ms. Whitmore, legal has received the archive request." Ethan looked at the gold company emblem above the elevators, then back at the woman in the charcoal coat. Claire Whitmore ended the call and requested one final file, the creation history of Ethan's termination report. The timestamp appeared in red at the bottom of the screen, 7:38 p.m., 4 minutes before he found the wallet and 1 minute before the camera was deliberately disabled. Claire placed both hands on the marble. "This will not be handled upstairs," she said. "Tomorrow morning, everyone who watched this accusation begin will watch the evidence be presented. By 9. The next morning, the marble lobby of Whitmore Systems no longer felt like a place people simply passed through. Folding chairs had been arranged beneath the gold company emblem. Night shift employees stood along the glass wall, their uniforms still carrying the smells of floor wax, machine oil, and cold air from the loading dock. Human resources, legal counsel, security, and department supervisors faced a large monitor beside the same counter where Ethan Cole's bent badge had rested the night before. Ethan entered in his old jacket, the cuffs still faintly marked with graphite. Lily's folded note remained in his breast pocket. He had slept less than 2 hours. He did not look like a man arriving to win. He looked like a father who had decided not to leave before the truth finished speaking. Martin Voss stood near the monitor in a pressed navy suit, one hand resting on a leather folder. His voice was calm when Claire asked him to begin. "What occurred last night was an unfortunate escalation," he said. "Mr. Cole found a wallet, handled it without authorization, and became defensive when security followed standard procedure. Some records may contain timing errors, but errors are not evidence of intent." Several supervisors nodded. Martin opened the folder and produced a printed maintenance policy. Temporary employees are prohibited from interfering with security equipment or directing evidence handling. Mr. Cole did both. The room's attention shifted toward Ethan. For a moment, Martin's explanation seemed to settle over the crowd like dust. Ethan had touched the photograph. He had questioned the logs. He had pointed security toward the backup recorder. Every careful action could be made to sound like interference. Claire stood beside the counter in the same charcoal coat, but she had not yet identified herself publicly. She watched Martin without rescuing Ethan from the silence. Ethan placed his cracked phone face down on the table. "I asked them to preserve what was there," he said. "Not to believe me." Claire nodded to the guard. The sealed black wallet appeared first on the monitor, enlarged beneath white evidence lights. This crescent-shaped scratch was visible along the lower corner, graphite packed inside the groove. Beside it appeared the gray maintenance cart rail, measured at the same height. Martin folded his hands. Shared contact proves nothing. The wallet was found beside maintenance equipment. "Correct," Ethan said. "It proves contact, not who caused it." The next screen showed the service log. The cart had been released at 7:34 p.m. under Management Authorization M. Voss. The door access record showed Martin's badge entering storage at the same minute. No employee badge followed. Martin did not flinch. "I often prepare equipment for workers before they finish upstairs. It saves time." Mr. Cole requested the cart. The explanation was simple enough to restore a few murmurs. Martin looked toward Ethan with measured concern. He may not remember the radio call clearly. He was under financial pressure. Ethan's bent badge was placed on the counter, its corner folded where Martin had pulled it away. Ethan looked at the dead radio clipped beside his old toolbox. "The battery failed at 6:50, he said. "The maintenance sheet records it." A scanned copy appeared on the monitor. The entry had been signed by the evening security officer at 6:57. The room quieted again. Martin's eyes moved briefly toward the camera above the desk. Then he may have spoken to me in person. I was on the 18th floor, Ethan replied. The elevator and door logs confirm that. Claire asked legal counsel to display the timeline. At 7:34, Martin entered storage. At 7:38, Ethan's termination form was created. At 7:39, the service hall camera entered maintenance mode. At 7:42, Ethan exited the freight elevator and found the wallet. At 7:45, security detained him. Each event appeared one line at a time, the red timestamps reflected in the marble beneath the screen. Martin's professional expression finally tightened. This timeline is being presented without operational context. I moved the wallet only to protect it after it was reported unattended. No one spoke. Ethan turned his head slowly. Claire's hand stopped above the leather folder. Martin seemed to hear his own sentence a second too late. Ethan's voice remained quiet. No. One accused you of moving it. The air conditioning clicked off. In the sudden stillness, Rosa stood near the back wall with both hands wrapped around the handle of her cleaning cart. Claire did not look at Martin. She looked at legal counsel. Play the preserved audio from the backup recorder, she said. On the monitor, a black file window opened, its waveform waiting beneath the timestamp 7:37 p.m. The audio file opened with a burst of static, then the low mechanical hum of the service corridor. A wheel clicked 3 times. Martin's voice came through next, quieter than anyone in the lobby had heard it before. Leave it where the elevator camera can miss the corner. A second voice, distorted by distance, asked, "And the cash?" Martin answered, "Counted already. 3,800. Enough to make desperation believable." No one moved. The projector fan became the loudest sound in the room. Martin's leather folder slipped against his palm, and a single page slid onto the marble. "That recording is incomplete," he said. His voice had gone dry. "There is no proof I was referring to this wallet." Claire raised one hand, and legal counsel advanced the file by 18 seconds. A rapid mechanical flutter filled the speakers, the unmistakable rhythm of bills passing through a counting machine. Beneath it came the 3-click while moving toward the service elevator. Claire turned to the guard. "Display the mailroom camera." The screen changed to a narrow view of the building's internal delivery area at 7:31 p.m. Martin entered, carrying the black wallet. He placed it beside the postage station, removed the cash, and fed the bills through the mailroom counting machine. The total flashed on its small blue screen, 3,800. He returned the money to the wallet, wiped the leather with a cloth, then pushed Ethan's gray maintenance cart toward storage. Martin stared at the image of his own hands. "I was conducting an integrity test." "Without authorization?" Claire asked. "Management has discretion in loss prevention matters. Not to plant property, not to falsify discipline, not to disable cameras." Martin looked toward the supervisors who had nodded at him minutes earlier. None met his eyes. He reached for the policy folder, but his pen rolled from the counter and struck the floor with a small metallic tap. Ethan did not watch him bend to retrieve it. His attention had shifted to the old photograph lying inside its separate evidence sleeve. The water from the spilled bucket had loosened the thin paper stuck behind it. Claire carefully turned the sleeve beneath the evidence camera. A faded thermal receipt came into focus. Whitmore Systems mailroom. Cash counter service test. The time printed across the top was 7:32 p.m. Below it, the machine total read 3,800. Martin's management identification number appeared at the bottom. The receipt had caught against the photograph when he hurriedly returned both items to the wallet. Claire looked at Martin. "A test has an honest question." This had a prepared answer. The room went still in a different way then. Not the silence of uncertainty, but the silence that arrives when every excuse has lost its place to stand. The glass doors reflected rows of employees staring at the monitor. Rosa's cleaning cart stood beside her, its damaged wheel tilted slightly inward. Somewhere near the back, a phone vibrated and was silenced without being answered. Claire stepped beneath the gold company emblem. My name is Claire Whitmore. I founded this company, and I created the Employee Emergency Fund anonymously because no worker should have to trade dignity for help. A murmur moved through the lobby and died almost immediately. Ethan looked at the woman who had asked why he had not taken the money. She was not asking him to trust her now. She was accepting responsibility in front of everyone who had watched him be treated as guilty. Ethan Cole's suspension is revoked, Claire said. His record will be cleared in writing. The accusation will be formally withdrawn, and the correction will be distributed to every department that received the original report. She turned toward Martin. Your access is suspended effective immediately. Independent investigators have preserved the security logs, assistance records, payment files, and vendor accounts. You will have no contact with employees connected to this. Review. Martin's face did not collapse. It emptied. The polished confidence remained in the shape of his posture, but not in his eyes. Security requested his badge. For several seconds, he held it between two fingers. Then he placed it on the same marble counter where Ethan's bent temporary badge had been displayed the night before. Claire ordered every altered emergency fund application reopened, every denial independently reviewed, and every referral to Voss Community Services frozen. Rosa lowered her head and released a breath that trembled on the way out. Ethan picked up his bent badge but did not straighten it. He simply closed his hand around it. Mr. Cole, Claire said, what happened to you should never have been possible here. Ethan looked at the workers lining the glass wall, at the names still waiting inside the corrupted files, and at Lily's purple note visible above his jacket pocket. Then fix what made it possible, he said. Claire nodded. We will. Legal counsel placed the written exoneration before him, followed by an emergency compensation agreement and an invitation to meet privately about his future. Ethan did not reach for the pen. The truth had restored his name, but now everyone was waiting to see what a man who had refused the money in the wallet would choose when something far larger was finally offered to him. The lobby emptied slowly after Martin surrendered his badge. No one applauded. Chairs scraped softly across the marble. The projector dimmed, and employees left in small groups carrying copies of corrected notices instead of rumors. Security escorted Martin to a conference room where independent investigators waited with sealed drives, access logs, assistance records, and vendor files. Claire ordered Ethan's suspension removed before he left the building. His written exoneration was sent to every supervisor who had received the accusation, and the termination form created at 7:38 was preserved as evidence rather than quietly deleted. Rosa stood beside her cleaning cart while a human resources representative reopened her crew's rejected assistance cases one by one. Claire did not call it generosity. She called it correction. Ethan remained at the marble counter with the compensation agreement unopened beneath his hands. The black wallet had been returned to Claire inside a clear evidence pouch, the crescent scratch still visible through the plastic. His bent temporary badge lay beside it. The payment is for the harm the company caused, Claire said. It is not charity. Ethan read the first page carefully. The amount covered lost wages, legal expenses, and the immediate damage caused by the false accusation. He looked at the separate envelope marked emergency assistance. And that, the fund application you qualified for 11 days ago. Then process it under the same rules as everyone else. Claire nodded. Already ordered. Ethan signed the compensation agreement only after legal counsel added language guaranteeing that acceptance would not end the wider investigation or silence affected workers. He did not ask for Martin's humiliation. He asked that every altered file be reviewed by someone outside the operations chain and that employees be allowed to appeal denials without going through the manager who made them. Claire wrote each request down. You understand systems, she said. Ethan glanced toward his old toolbox beneath the security desk. Systems fail in patterns. So do people. People can choose differently. By afternoon, Lily sat beside him in a quiet conference room, her backpack between her sneakers and a paper cup of apple juice held in both hands. She had been told only that her father had been accused unfairly and that the company had corrected it. Ethan did not give her the weight of the investigation. She was 9 and justice was an adult responsibility. She reached into his jacket pocket and touched the folded note she had written. You kept it. I needed the reminder. Did you do the right thing? He looked through the glass wall at Claire speaking with auditors, Rosa answering questions beside a union representative, and employees lining up to verify their records. I tried. Claire later offered Ethan a permanent position in facilities engineering. He declined the immediate appointment. I was an aviation electrical technician, he said, but I have been out of that work for years. Test me like anyone else. So the company arranged an independent skills examination. Ethan spent 2 weeks studying after Lily went to bed, his old watch beside the manuals and his toolbox open at his feet. He passed the written test, then found 2 hidden wiring faults during the practical assessment without damaging the equipment. His offer letter named the score, the qualifications, and the hiring panel. It did not mention the wallet. 3 months later, the Employee Emergency Fund had a separate review board, protected camera archives, written appeal rights, and no reporting line connected to discipline. 23 altered cases were restored. Several workers received backdated assistance. Voss Community Services was referred to state investigators, and Martin faced consequences through the evidence he had created himself. Ethan never visited the hearing. On his first morning as an electrical systems technician, he clipped a new badge to his old jacket. The bent temporary one remained in his toolbox beside Lily's note. It no longer looked like proof that he had once been treated as disposable. It looked like a reminder that a broken system could be repaired only after someone refused to pretend the damage was normal. That evening, Lily waited outside the building while Ethan locked his toolbox. Claire crossed the lobby and stopped near them, no security detail, no announcement. Your father changed this company, she told Lily. Ethan shook his head. The evidence did. Claire looked at him. You made sure it was not buried. Lily slipped her hand into her father's. Through the glass doors, the marble lobby reflected the 3 of them beneath softer evening lights. For a moment, no one spoke. It was not the silence of accusation or shock. It was the quiet that comes when respect no longer needs to be demanded. Lily looked up at Ethan. Was she rich enough to fix everything? Ethan closed the toolbox, the bent badge resting safely inside. No one is, he said. That is why rules have to protect people too.